Wow. Good evening, everyone. Hope I'm coming through loud and clear. Ransom, well, he had a little difficulty with his computer this evening. So I'm just going to be coming at you here, bringing you some images and graphics. Now, hopefully, Ransom can grab and get some of those as well. Private chat says I'm good with his mic and thing. Thank you so much. Well, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what to say. We have entered officially today the beginning of the reset of the economy. If you haven't seen the different Genius Act and Clarity Stabilization Act, Stablecoin Act, all these things have passed in the United States Congress House. It's already going to go to the president's desk tomorrow. At least for the Genius Act, which is the very beginning of the stabilization or the Stablecoin Act and the Stabilization Crypto Act and the de minimis. Like one of the big things that's happened is, thank you, not CO2, not you. It's the sun. The sun. And the magnetic field driving in a cycle is, I believe, the reason that we're resetting the economy, because they realize, these rulers in power, that our civilization can't be salvaged in its current form, because as things change, as they have through the ages, there's going to be people migrating all over the place. Not this false migration, but really people will need to move because of lack of food production, lack of job opportunities. And as companies, corporations have to shift, because where they used to grow or produce foods, products, factories, etc., they're going to move to different areas because the viability due to the climate, they're just going to leave. And the way that the world's shutting down right now, we're going to have to revalue, rethink how everything is assigned a value. Now, this has begun as of today. So if you're not understanding about the stablecoin issuance thing, and you might go, what the hell, why are they doing this crypto thing? Like I was talking to somebody and they were giving me the example of Brazil. So you got an Uber driver in Brazil. They don't want to take the real. They want to take US dollars. But on the phone app, you can offer payment in USDC or USDT. And that allows that cab driver or taxi driver, Uber driver, whatever food delivery service person, to take the tips or the actual payment by themselves if they determine in a stable coin issued with the one-to-one backing out of a US dollar, which will allow the world's people to use US dollars in a digital format to choose over the local currency, because the US dollar's the best worst choice we have right now. You can't have rounds of gold in your, I guess you could. That'd be a payday for somebody if you only gave them I only have a 1/10 of an ounce of gold to give you as a tip. Okay. But most people are going to use stable coins and that sort of thing. The Genius Act. Now, this is truly the resetting of the economy as we know it. We have just moved away from the US dollar that you understand, that I grew up with, you grew all the way until yesterday. That dollar no longer exists. As once President Trump signs this on the bottom line, I think it's going to be tomorrow, the dollar that you used to know and I used to know is gone. It is replaced, but it will not be called something different. But the issuance of it and the distribution of it and the utilization globally in a tokenized fashion has just moved us into the digital dollar as of today or tomorrow when the legislation signed. The Clarity Act is going to be following this, because people are very, very unclear on, am I dealing with a commodity? Am I dealing with a security? Am I dealing with cash? Like, it's very unknown, because it was super murky since 2017 on purpose. And those of you who are in the crypto space, you understood why it was murky on purpose. They needed to keep it on the shelf until they needed it off the shelf, which was now. So this gray area where companies could never operate in crypto, the usage of it in a daily fashion was not possible. You did something with crypto and the Department of Justice and the IRS is up your ass with a microscope. That's what it was like until just this year. On purpose it was stifled. It's very much like every single invention that could break humanity free, like zero-point technologies, Parandev magnetic motors, electrogravitics, and these home inventions that would give everybody free, limitless power that had been around since the era of Nikola Tesla, stifled on purpose to take us into a patented, pay-by, metered system. And we could have gone away from that 100 and some years ago, but we didn't. And now they're unshelving that, sort of. It's going to come back. And the reason I say that is the enormous amount of power to drive the whole blockchain, which is going to go not up 1 or 2 times, but hundreds, plural, of times. So you're going to need more computational power to be able to, run these different blockchains, whatever application they're going to use, like Ethereum, Sway, Cardano, ADA. I encourage you to look at the ISO 20022 list. They have been putting it out. Suddenly, if you notice, I'm going to run through some crypto prices with you because we are literally seeing history being made. We have just entered a new global reserve currency on the digital format. Old dollars. I don't know how long it's going to take, but mark my words, they're going to make us turn in our paper cash at some sort of exchange rate. Not tomorrow, but let this thing take hold like eagle's talons into you and into the country. Oh, it's up at 0.1%. All right. So as this legislation was being announced earlier around 4 p.m., and I've been following it because this is one of the biggest opportunities in human history right on your screen right here, right now. If you are poised for this, you will retire in the next year. I kid you not. The opportunity here is staggeringly once in a 500-year event happening, if not even longer. But that thing, when they were putting the legislation out, that thing dropped 3.9% negative on the entire market, and the huge amount of those coins were going negative. But as the traders got out of Wall Street and exited their positions, everything is turning over, and you are going to watch. This is a wealth transfer here. This is the biggest wealth transfer in human history. And if the ISO 20022 tokens, if you're not familiar, it's Cardano and Hedera Hashgraph. Who else is on there? Quant is the main, and that's going to be the center of the center. Quant is an XDC. Never heard of this one. And then it's rising like hundreds of % over the last 2 weeks. It's up like 200%. Solana's not on that list, by the way, but it's at $1.80. It was at $1.62 earlier. So you can see the amount of things as Stellar Lumens. That's going to be, you're buying a pack of gum, instantaneous swap. And right now they are at about 15 to 20 times faster and more transactions per day and per hour than any credit card system on the planet, blowing away anything that MasterCard or Visa can do. Absolutely just smoking that. We have absolutely rolled into the new world. Now, the reason I would say that, it is snowing again for the second time in China this week. Turkey had snow the week before. We got snow back in the United States again this week. I'm going to move you over to the watchers and some other areas here to take a look at some of these. SOT.net also in some of my screens that I can share. California is recording some of the coldest temperatures they've had in summer in quite some time. It's just everywhere you look. Even Ryan Maue over there on X is putting out that the lower 48 is below normal, and you are being told that everything's frying, but it's not. So if we are truly entering this era where we're not going to be able to grow food stably any longer, that was a great excuse they fed us to keep us complacent for 25, 30 years of the green agenda, global warming, but everything's happening the opposite now. So you might just want to ask, if you believe there's a cycle that's known that resets our civilization or dents, I wouldn't say maybe a full upheaval, but a dent into it. That's beyond human control. The only control humanity would have over it is its own local economy on how to give value to things that will be disrupted. And then Ransom talks about this every week. AI is coming for us. It's here. It's already here. So now we have this overlay of AI, which is going to be a giant power consumer. With all of this new blockchain stablecoin issuance and everything that runs on that. Oh, VeChain also was another one of the ISO 20022 tokens. That is specifically and 100% set for logistics and tracking of goods, whatever good it is, from point A to point B, and every input that goes into it. So in a farm setting, every bit of fertilizer, herbicide, pesticide, the seed variety, the trucks that delivered it, everything in that entire chain is on that in one transactional envelope, for a better term. Every single container that's going to move across the planet will be on VeChain. Every good that's going to be transferred anywhere across the planet in any container or on any airplane ever again moving forward will be on VeChain. That's what it was made for. That's why it's on the ISO 20022 list. It's a short list of 8 tokens. It's the payment rails and the tracking and tracing of all product and good across the planet. And that's where we sit today. This is in motion and it has just begun. So, I would look at this. There's many epochs and eras. If you go back through history, you can start to see, what are the most significant dates in human history. And I kid you not, with a very straight face, we have approached another absolutely gargantuan mark in history for humanity that is beginning tonight and tomorrow. Our world will never be the same after this. The hyperinflation that we're going to experience as they switch systems, and the adoption curve where people are not going to be ready. And I wrote this note here earlier today on a napkin, no less. It came to me out of the blue. And here's my quote that I was reading to myself. We're entering a world where not a lot of people know how to operate. And the biggest challenge moving forward for well over 90% of the planet's population is they're going to be instantly thrust into this world of blockchain, cryptocurrency, wallets, private wallets. They're not going to know how to handle it. Like in the old days, you had to do all that yourself. So now they give you all these easy options. And the last thing I'll say to start the program here, Ransom, thanks for joining me. He's got a little problem over there on the computer tonight. So he's joining me from behind. He can talk, but the camera got fried and we're going to go that direction. But the de minimis, this is the most important thing. If this thing passes, you 100% know we have arrived. The de minimis. Now, the de minimis for the exports out of Hong Kong was a big thing. It was like 8%, anything under 8% or whatever. It was under $600 that there was no tax on it. So anything arriving from anywhere overseas, anywhere, if it was under $600, there was no import tax on it. Now, the problem right now with crypto is if you sell it, you have a tax bill. I don't care if you sell $1 of token, you owe the government 20% of that. So the de minimis is they're going to get us into the credit card world where if you buy a cup of coffee using crypto in an exchange on a crypto card, which we're all moving to, that we're all going to be stuck and sucked into this. If you don't think we got stuck and sucked into this whole track, trace, terrorism, watch list world and all these NDAA and all this garbage that tracked along after 9/11, this is going to be significantly stickier, like super glue. That was like gum on your shoe, 9/11, sticking all this stuff that got us to here. What we're moving forward is super glue on your thumbs. That's the difference in it. Seriously. That was bubble gum on your shoe. This is super glue on your thumbs. This is a worldwide event. And I cannot believe more people are not talking about this. This is a gargantuan shift. Well, anyway, the thing is right now, if I use a crypto credit card, which I don't have, I refuse to use them because I refuse to pay the tax on a simple transaction of buying a cup of coffee using crypto that somebody gave me because I had the channel and they gave me some like stellar lumens and said, hey man, enjoy a cup of coffee. Here's, $10 worth of stellar lumens. And I was like, thank you so much. That $10 will be worth thousands of dollars in another year. I'm going to hold on to it. So I didn't want to spend it. But then people are like, hey, you could load it into a credit card and spend it. I'm like, wait a second. The price of that went up, almost doubled over the last 2 weeks. So when I go to spend a crypto credit card with the stellar lumens somebody donated to me, I would have to pay a capital gains tax on that every purchase I made, even if it was for a cup of coffee. So this de minimis rule is coming in where it's under 600. Again, it's very close to what the boxes were coming into America. I think they're going to have to raise it because I could go off to like Home Depot and then go off to like Sam's Club or something, and I could blow well over that. Every time you spend, they're not going to be able to tax you. It won't work if they're going to tax everybody at 20% rate of every time you spend your money, you get taxed 20%. That's not going to work. And these bozos that were debating this stuff today, I saw almost a clown show. It's ridiculousness. I don't even know why we leave these politicians in charge of anything. They are such ridiculous, like cartoonish memes wearing bad fitting suits up against a podium trying to. There were some people that were wanted to, that I'm shocked. I kid you not. They wanted you to pay 7.5% on every transaction that you did in crypto. 7.5%, which means you had to make 7.5% on your whatever you bought before you'd even break even. And then you had to sell it and they taxed you at 20%. And then there was another 7.5% charge just for getting out of your position. I was like, wait, dude, you're up at 15%, 20, that's at 35% tax to use crypto. And they're trying to come in and they just blew these people out of the water. They were so, I couldn't even believe what they were talking about. So anyway, this is where we sit. So you're going to look in order of check marks on this thing. And once we hit these final check marks, then the world as you know it is changed and we're in a new one. So the de minimis spend taxation on crypto rule, which is going to bring us under to zero tax under a certain amount. That's got to go. That's got to come in. The stablecoin issuance, once they get the Clarity Act, once that passes, and then the other one they snapped in there, they're putting it in the NDAA, which has to pass anyway. You can't, that's not going to not pass. So they're slapping junk on the bottom of it. They call it a rider on a bill. They're putting all this stuff on there. So anyway, we are in a brave new world. But anyway, Ransom, I see you there. Thank you for joining me.
You think they signed over our firstborn children?
I'm just shocked. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, man. Please.
No, I'm just joking about these giant bills. I mean, we really are in an enormous transformation here. And I think it's because we're going to have an event and they know what it is. And, you know, I'm not claiming to do it, but I mean, know what it is. But I think this AI is kind of the major, not only distraction so that you're not ready, but it's also the entity that's going to take over after reset. So they have to get people used to the convenience, the idea, the networking, the tools, the toys, the whole thing. It's going to be a whole cultural shift, and it's going to be, they've been practicing this tribalism. Either you like this or you like that. Wait till the only real topic is whether or not your country and everything around you is run by AI and robotics versus the people that want it out of their lives. Now, I always bring up the fact that sci-fi movies always nail this decades, sometimes many decades before the actual circumstance comes upon us. But here we are. Watch, I'll show you. You know, it's like every week they up the ante with this propaganda. It's more than it's not negative propaganda. It's true propaganda, but it's still propaganda nonetheless. They're just hammering you with it. Welcome to the age of office paranoia. And this is what I talked about a little bit the last couple of weeks about the job layoffs, the great log off, and the replacement of humans in the human domain with robotics and AI that runs that robotics and all of the other programs associated that can do your job better than you can. So here it is. Job insecurity is terrorizing workers. And then here's the next article. Cleared to lay off workers. Some federal agencies find many already left, meaning there's a strong possibility that a portion of the workforce was already AI and people weren't even there. In other words, People were getting checks that didn't exist. People were getting checks that didn't even go to work. People were getting checks that may or may not have been letting AI do their job already. And here it is. This one's similar to the one I brought up last week. Is it anti-intelligence? Is artificial intelligence turning off our minds? And that's exactly what I was talking about. It's a cognitive debt where we're not really paying attention to things. And here's where it gets really twisted on out there. I did a show on my channel called the Friend Economy, because all of the companies that are dealing with robotics and AI, their number one thing that they want to push first is that every human being befriend or have a robotic entity or an AI that is their friend. And we brought this up joking around about the Tesla bot in the house becoming a family member, but it's much more than that. They went from the phone that they, uniquely designed and named the operating system in it a droid. And they got you used to carrying around a robot in your pocket, basically, that told you stuff, that gave you directions, that was helpful. Now they want it to be to the next level where it's not only, doing tasks for you and helping your life be better and easier, it wants it to interact with you. It wants it to give you opinions or sway your opinion about something, or whatever. And they're targeting kids. And that's why, we're kind of talking about it. It doesn't matter. Everybody from now on is being trained in this fashion, that there's going to be an AI entity involved in their life in one way or another. Soon they will be replacing teachers at school. Literally, like the teacher will be an AI robotic entity that sits there and does lectures. And then it comes back. But this is the scary part. I talked about synthetic DNA and building basically human races from scratch now. But not only that, you have synthetic DNA in the form of nanobots. And now we're looking at articles that are telling us straight up robots are now, they can now grow and repair themselves by consuming parts from other machines, which is where I was saying that would be the point in which you're no longer needed, when the robots can now repair the robots or even create new robots. So now we're way off in sci-fi land. And then
Yeah, no,
here it is.
Ransom, could I stop you just for just a second there?
Yeah.
Because that same thing you just talked about with augmentation, this whole thing with the MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, they're encouraging us to all get wearables. I was reading a couple articles today, like, why would they want to track everybody's bodily health? It's going to be more like a minority report for insurance companies, knowing what you consume. So I'm having some white wine tonight. It was super hot outside, and some Pinot Grigio to like cool down for a minute. Like, it'll know that I'm consuming alcohol if I have a wearable on. So this whole thing with insurance companies, just like, well, they're predicting what your health will be like by what your body temperature, are you doing your exercise, what kind of things you're consuming in your body. All that same thing goes right along with what you're talking about, the AI in the office, in the classroom with you. It'll know what you're thinking, how you're thinking. Are you going to be a good citizen, a dangerous one, a healthy one, a bad one, or whatever? And you're going to be classified by the machines. And
Absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
scary.
And not only that, they've been planning this for quite some time. It's the reason that you have to give over your driver's license information when you go to the convenience store to buy alcohol or tobacco or marijuana in the states that have it legalized there.
I'll
They
put a
are
piece of black tape on the back of your license so they can't see the barcode, and tell them you can see my ID is valid. That's all you need to know. They
well,
don't
they'll
need to
get
scan the back of it.
true, but that's us weirdos that want to keep our privacy to ourselves. But for the vast majority of the populace, they're just okay. They've already been trained and got used to doing that. And what they don't realize is they've been saving and storing that metadata for exactly the purpose that you mentioned. They'll hand over that metadata to the insurance companies in the near future, and they'll deny health care to people that develop certain cancers or other diseases that are associated with the use of tobacco or pharmaceuticals or alcohol, or it may be even that you worked in a specific industry and they might count you. You may have mesothelioma now, and we've already settled all the cases. You might have got glyphosate exposure, but we've already settled all those cases. You might have got poisoned by this, that, or the other thing. And you're absolutely right about the wearable peripherals. That's been long part of the plan, to connect that to the droid in your pocket, to the robot that is now the nanny state, literally wanting to live with you. And I might, stretch that idea to be a violation of the Third Amendment and some of the other ones. Basically, you have a robotic soldier in the near future quartered in your home that's reporting everything you do, whether or not you're violating laws or breaking rules of some kind. It all goes there. But then back to the peripherals, they've been getting humans used to being assimilated with the technology, whether it's like the little Apple rings that keep track of your health, or the watches, or what have you. And it's all going to be sold in a benevolent way. In other words, to help you live longer, easier, better, less stressed life. That's the package that they're sending. But in reality, they're building an infrastructure that's, a nightmare and imagination of the nanny state gone transhuman. And here's one right here for people that were, like us, that were talking about all the electricity and power needed to run and process these giant server rooms to host the AIs, the metadata, all of this other information that has
And
to
the
be
crypto
stored.
blockchain at the same time, and
Right.
your lives and houses. And it's just not going to be enough electric.
Yes. And we also talked about, there's a lot of people that are rural and they live out in the middle of, the countryside, and they really don't think this transhuman agenda is going to affect them. But let me argue to the opposite. Natural gas, which is found everywhere where you grow food and just about everywhere in every rural area, not to mention the fracking mines and other things, those are other resources they're already looking to fuel the AI race. So don't worry if we don't have enough electricity. We'll use other natural resources to power this transhuman revelation. And then here, AI, are Americans worrying about the wrong jobs? Here's a little chart I thought we'd go over because it's not very big, but
No, you can click on that. It'll open up.
yeah.
Maybe.
Open
I
it.
usually open an image in a
Okay.
new window.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, is that from Statista? Yeah, they're pretty good usually.
Here we go. There it is. But this is a, versus thing. Adults versus the experts in the field of AI. What they believe, which markets will be, taken by AI. And you can see both cashiers and the AI experts are at this number 73, which is tied. So both of the groups, the people that work in it and the people that are planning to replace them, both agree that, they're going to be replaced. Here's truck drivers. Only 33 on the score here. I don't know if this is percentage, but let's just call it a number here, because you can clearly see the difference. But the truck drivers, they got a score of about 33, believing that their job would be taken. But the AI experts put that number at 62, meaning that they're much more confident that those jobs will also be taken by artificial intelligence. Journalists and AI experts about the same. Software engineers and the AI experts about the same. Lawyers, very cocky, confident that they won't be replaced by algorithms and AIs.
They're going to be the first ones to go. I'm telling you that it's already a borderline of them being completely useless now.
Right. And the AI experts have a much larger number, about a little more than 10 in their spread. Musicians, they're a lot of them believe they're going to be taken, and less of the AI experts think that. But we already know this is happening. I brought that up last week. One of the number one at the charts was a completely AI fabrication, based on human music and imagery and stuff. And they made a fake band. They made fake art for it. They made songs. People liked it. It went to the top of the chart. So they may be wrong right there. So teachers have a high number of 43, and AI experts don't think so. But I was just talking about that. All you need really is a computer, and children are already being trained to use the chat GPT and all of that to do their work and take it to school in the first place. So why not just skip the middleman, homeschool yourself with the robotic aid, and it teaches you. And I'm sure you've seen a science fiction movie or two where that was the case, where they had a family robot that also instructed the young ones on information and stuff like that. Medical doctors, pretty cocky, think they're not going to be replaced. The AI experts don't think so either. However, I might, argue that we've already been seeing the outcome of that, where there's machines that are now doing surgeries, and not only that, AI that's deciding the medication and pharma that you might need, and keeping track of what you didn't get, if you catch my drift.
No,
But
right.
then,
Also, they've done a couple running tests, if you will, and it seems the AI performed even better in diagnosing things that were, doctors come up with different opinions and things. But the AI seemed I forget the test. I'd read about it a couple weeks back, but the AI had actually performed better in just not surgeries, but just assessing cases on what person what the ailment they had. So they're already at least at that first diagnosis office visit thing where AI is more productive and faster and better. But once you take those next couple steps, where it takes human reasoning and maybe some surgery, et cetera, that's where they might keep that. But that initial assessment, like where you go to the doctor now and they take your blood pressure, hey, what are you doing? What are you making? How do you feel today, et cetera? That AI wins hands down.
Absolutely. Actually, I just watched a video. I forgot to pull it up for our show, but it was an algorithm AI that used the one X-ray that someone got, and then it turned it into a bunch of different directions, and got to look at it in ways that they couldn't do without taking a lot more X-rays. So the AI already saved radiation exposure to the patient. I've seen all kinds of AIs that diagnose, like you said, better diseases based on just questionnaires. And there's algorithms that can just take a video of you and diagnose you and tell that you have some health problems. That's all absolutely true and happening. So it's hard for me to believe that neither the AI experts nor the people that actually work in that field think that that's going to happen, because they're being, they're trying to be positive and think, you know what, I'm not going to go talk to a robot about my healthcare. But I hate to tell you, it's already implemented. You can ask veterans. They have a computer called Watson, ironically, if you know the history behind IBM and the name Watson. I'm not going to get into that, but
Oh,
if
we
you know
shouldn't. We should definitely not, Ransom. What is a
but
family
anyway,
friendly show? Family friendly there, YouTube. Family friendly advertiser program.
right. So, but that computer is named Watson, and it decides who it's going to cover as far as veterans that have been hurt. It decides their coverage. It literally decides whether or not that they're going to die or not. So you can take that how you want it.
That's
But let's move
terrible.
over to something a little different. Drones, AI, robotic pickers. We were talking about that last time, and now it's just flooding the headlines. I've seen it in at least 5 different news sources where they were pushing 1 or even 2 articles about this. This is where people get replaced. And like I said, the future of the world doesn't need a big populace if you have enough robots to take care of a smaller populace. You see what I mean? It becomes very convenient and very user friendly if there's not millions of people to eat. If there's less people to eat in each little area with an amount of robots, they can easily take those jobs away. And not only take those jobs away, but I might add tens of thousands of years of evolution of humans alongside with agriculture and domestication of animals there. And it gets into the whole thing. I mean, it's really happening, whether people want to believe it or not. But if you have a big, farm and you're sitting there and it's hard to get work and people can't show up, or, they got baby drama mama, or they drank too much and came late, or they got some kind of other habit where they don't show up, or they disappear on payday for 4 days, the robot ain't going to do that. So that might sound like a lot better option to somebody that wants to hire robots and have less overhead costs when it comes to the human cost of doing business. And they don't have to hire people that are not legally here, so they don't have to worry about breaking laws in that way. And, if they educate themselves just a little bit, they'll know how to work these machines just like any other machine in the past. The farmer or the person that actually uses the machine knows how to fix it, knows how to, use it right, knows when it's going to break or what it can do and what it can't do. They know better than the manufacturer almost, because they're the ones actually out there using it. So let's get into a little
Wait a
bit
second,
of
Ransom. Could I stop you? Because I remember, and can you go back to that picture again, or even the YouTube channel? So after this is 2 weeks ago when Ransom and I were talking about this. So I was taking our 2-hour show and I was cutting it into a 30-minute segment to put it up on the Adapt 2030 channel. So I was looking for different robotic agriculture machinery right now. And I kid you not, there was one that scared me. It looks like a spider. It has 4 arms coming out of it. The head is very aerodynamic. It's sort of a diamond that morphs into sort of a hexagram on the top of the head. But each appendage on each arm, and it goes through the field rows, has a laser on it that can pinpoint plants. Now, they had some larger thing that rolled on wheels that did the same thing. It also had a picker arm where it could trim leaves that were dying off of there. And then the other sets would have spray nozzles on them so they could either do insecticide or some sort of fertilizer application coming out of what you consider like a spider's legs. Each one of those had a different application, exactly the same laser pinch arm for dead leaves on this four leg or whatever it is. Second leg back had the one that could be interoperated, that between, depending on what it was spraying an insecticide or was it spraying a different kind of fertilizer on it. So the appendages of this thing had different operations as well. And they were crawling, and these things were big, big enough to fit between rows and creep along there. Like if I had never seen that, and I suddenly was thrust into a farm field position, there were hundreds of those giant spiders walking around out in the field, that really would scare me. But I encourage you to watch these 30-minute episodes that, I cut for Ransom and I to present our content in a 30-minute, segment. And also you can sign up for our show notes. And I just put those out before the show. About 8 bullet points from last week's episode. So we try to get it down into bite-sized nuggets to continue the conversation. we run through an enormous amount of information with the websites. I'm going to pull up a bunch of stuff from my screens as well, more the climate side. But head over to civilizationcycle.com, throw your email in the bottom there, and you get right on our mailing list. You can swipe that QR code that's on the screen right now. And our playlist is right there. So we're episode 556, I do believe. And you can just listen to it in audio format if you want to. If you're, going to work out for a minute, you're preparing dinner, you're driving to work, make sure you pop up our episodes and take a listen to them. They're pretty much cut at 30 minutes, as we do, and I do, the post edit on our 2-hour programs. Again, I try to keep ourselves on the line of the censors that would allow us to continue to distribute the information without being flagged as inappropriate, or as the videos removed, or this type of thing. But please support us by doing that, and also buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. If you like the content, please buy us a double espresso right over on the edge there. Oh, look at that. We're all like, weirded out. I'm not all jacked up because it's just too hot to be drinking a lot of coffee right now out here. It was 95 and like 90% humidity and 95 degrees today, and you could barely move. I was breathing. I was like, I'm breathing an atmosphere on a different planet. I really felt like that today. Like when I was breathing that high humidity and that high heat, I really felt like I was on a different planet, breathing a different atmosphere. So like drinking coffee in that time, not so conducive. But anyway, go. I'm sorry to cut you off there, but if you look at that thumbnail that's on the Adapt 2030 channel with Ransom and myself in that 30-minute episode, I featured that spider-like robot that's creeping through the fields now. So these 4-wheeled things that you think look like normal farm machine, now you got something that's actually walking like a spider, going through the fields and touching in the rows and getting up in there with these appendages and doing its thing as it goes along. And they're very efficient. They're small, and they're scary.
Yeah, they are. I've seen that thing. I've been actually looking at a lot of different designs. They put these little cute ones out. Like there was one in China. I have that one.
Was that the strawberry thing came down and people picked strawberry off the raft?
That's all. That's all this kind of scary shit to me. Oops. The scary stuff to me. They want to put out this cute stuff like this. Like this guy.
Those robots are doing parkour and kind of running all kind of cross country races that'll beat me and you in like a world record time now. That's they'll run you down. You think you're out in the countryside, you're not going to get run down by an AI robot. Imagine 10 of those chasing you down, as looking for an individual with all their like high tech sensors and thermal imaging and all that stuff, and they can shoot at 500 yards.
Right, and then you give them some solar panels that just let them stay up in the month, several months up in the air. It's like this one, this solar-powered 236-foot Sky Dweller aircraft flies around boggling 90 days without stopping. This is the future. Like I said, they're going to go with alternative fueling methods. That green movement everybody thought was going to make humans. No, that was just backup redundancy energy sources for the robotic revolution. So solar, nuclear, gas, they're going to use it all. All the fossil fuels, everything will be used. No, I just pointed this out also because we're talking about the surveillance state that comes along with this. And people, I brought this up at least 10 years ago on one of my first YouTube channels, that there was a drone that could stay up for this long on gas. It was like a Predator drone. It was a little bit bigger. It was called Argus, and it had like 10,000 little Apple iPhone cameras attached to it, and it could take a high definition video for days over an area, and that was in the late 90s. So you can imagine what kind of stuff is really floating up in there, and I wanted to get to that with a little bit of woo-woo right here, like I always do. Over 2,000 UFO sightings reported in the first half of 2025. Well, that's not surprising. At the same time that there's less air traffic up in the sky. Flights cancellations are up to like a third in some places, where people are getting their flights are getting canceled, or people are canceling flying. And I think that's moving us right in to this thing that, we've talked about how they're setting up this kind of net. And this gets a little woo-woo, to connect us to the universe, so different points human beings have been living on the earth, and they may or may not have been connected to, let's say, the galactic energy or messaging or whatever you want to call it, the wavelength. People got all kinds of, fancy names for this idea. And we've joked about, what if they're building, this 5G Wi-Fi electronic grid to kind of blot out that information. Well, literally, that's what they're finding when they're trying to look out at the universe. Now we have so much junk going on that they can't even see the universe anymore. So imagine if you're a human that's dialed into this information and they start blocking it, you literally can't get anything from outside of our little sphere, which puts us right back here 41,000, 42,000 years ago during I think it's the Lechamp, right, excursion here.
Yeah, Lechamp, or however
This
you
is
say it.
this is when the other hominids, our fellow man, which were different human creatures that were running around the earth alongside us, mating with us, creating their own things. Who knows what they were doing, but they all disappeared during this time. And I'm just thinking, if this happened now, which we know our magnetic field is doing some crazy stuff right now, if this just went ahead and happened now, all of that junk, the outdated junk, the old junk, the obsolete technology will just crumble and fall out of the sky. But it's okay, because in a couple decades they can put up this throwaway style net, but right back on the earth, like within no time. Look how fast Elon Musk put up all of his and the competing companies. It wasn't but a span of about 10 years total that they got the rockets, they got it up there, they launched it. They've been falling down, they've been getting busted up, but yet it's a web around the entire earth that has it. So I think we're getting there now. And if you want to see really how clogged the sky is, go outside just about anywhere on a clear night. And if you start watching the sky at about 45 degrees, that's northeast, or southwest at 225 degrees, or even 315 northwest, you're going to see satellites at a time period that changes each night. But I go out on my porch, I sit out there and I watch them. It's just so many objects are flying in there that, if you went back 15 years, people would be swearing up and down that the fleet was coming every night and that nobody's paying attention. But it's happening. It's
Now, Ransom, what
full.
about the Black Knight satellite? That one that resides up there. And I was just looking at some images here. I haven't set up my screen share yet this evening, so if I could maybe grab on and add a scene here.
Yeah,
I got the Black Knight satellite set up for us. I'm gonna go with the slides here. Screen share. There we go. Where's that at? Black Knight satellites. Here we go. Share this one up. So this is what it looks like, and this is the one that apparently was there when we went up, and they tagged this thing at around 30,000 years prior. So they're just wondering how this was there, what it is, this ancient aircraft / satellite, whatever you want to put a label to it. This is what was there. So, all the space junk would come down to a point where there might, and I'm just wondering how this kept a stationary orbit after 30,000 years, when almost everything gravitationally at that point would have easily plunged back to the planet. You're not keeping something up there for 30,000 years where there's gravitational tug bringing it down inch by inch, year by year. There's no way. Everything that exists above our heads in the sky right now, that would absolutely, all of it would come crashing to Earth. That's why you have these, all the stuff from the 1970s has come out of the sky. Like, how many times they've talked about whatever it is, space probes, all the way up to more of the rudimentary things we put up there for Skylab and all this stuff. Why does it all come out of orbit? Well, because that drag eventually in the gravitational pull, and we go through these solar cycles, and our magnetic field's different at a time. It just gradually loses its orbit unless it has the propulsion to bring it back up to altitude again. It's just going to follow along degradation of orbit year after year, and eventually it'll literally fall out of the sky. So if the Black Knight satellite to stay up for 30,000 years, like, something very different is going on with that. It's and I'll just leave it there, because you probably know way more about that than I do, because that's right up your alley.
Well, I know.
Well, see, thank you, Professor.
I know this, which is that the information available about that topic is I don't know. It's like all of the UFO kind of phenomenon. It goes back to a couple people that said that that's what it was. As far as I know, there's no evidence that it's a 30,000-year-old satellite at all. Matter of fact, NASA says that it's insulation that they've been tracking since it came out of one of the what is it? The I forgot what they call that.
Something S-71 Blackbird or something like that, right?
Well, no, it's supposed to have come out of one of their STS missions, which is the shuttles. So through the 90s, that's the official explanation for the Black Knight satellite. But there's lots of theories out there. It's like the pyramid in Antarctica. Is it a mountain? Is it a pyramid? We'll never know because you can't go there. So it's all speculation. But if you imagine, I mean, for that fact, you could go there about the moon. There's more evidence that the moon is artificial than the Black Knight satellite is a real thing, other than these pictures from other STS missions that are the ones that photographed it. And they were supposedly photographing it because they were keeping track of junk that they lost. So there's no way of us actually knowing if that's a real thing or an urban myth or whatever it is. However, we do know that, they've put up a lot of stuff like the moon has a lot of little weird quirks, like, ringing like a bell. The fact that it seems to be too perfectly tidally locked to the earth to be a natural phenomenon. But again, even those things are just opinions. So, who knows where that goes. But we do know that, they kind of lied to us about human origins because, every single day I'm reading a new article about either a new branch of humans that went extinct, a new hominid, or evidence of people being where they're not supposed to be. Like I just read a paper earlier today about 115,000-year-old footprints, fully anatomically correct there, which means it was a Cro-Mag running around Saudi Arabian desert when it was wet. It was wet, and he was getting a drink, and all the other animals there. There's other fossil footprints there, so we know that dune. It's basically just a dust dune of a country. Actually used to be a very habitable place for people, and people live there. Like it's every day they keep pushing this age back. Even in the Americas, they're pushing the eggs back. We got 30,000-year-old sloth bones that are carved into a necklace. You got out here at White Sands, New Mexico, 23,000-year-old footprints. And the oldest example of humans using a hand cart is also out here in the Americas, which is, pretty trippy considering that you would think that would be somewhere else in the world. But it's over here. So all of that's being turned on its head. And now we're in the sci-fi realm where we're about to figure out our story, where they're splitting us up into different species. And, think about this. No matter which side you're on this conflict going on, and well, pick a conflict. It doesn't even have to be a specific one. What's actually happening is the people that are gung-ho about fighting said war, they're being erased. Right? They're volunteering to be erased. So in Ukraine, all of the haptypes that would have represented Ukrainian men are almost gone. So them as a people, you have to have both the mitochondrial DNA and the paternal DNA to continue any type of people anywhere. Well, it's only the maternal DNA that's going to stay there because the male haptypes are disappearing in droves because they're sending them off to fight drones. I mean, that's basically what's happening. There's not much man-to-man combat going on now. It's mostly machine killing man, and that's going to continue and increase exponentially as we go on there. And matter of fact, I think it's funny.
Can I, since you were talking about this hell, can I just pull up this report real quick? Or can I throw this to you and you can kind of dissect it and see what you think? Greening of the Sahara. Here we go. All right. So this is, if I can get that to move over. All right. So this is off of a report that I just pulled up here. It talks about Earth's precessional cycle, and it shows you the greening and desertification over the last hundreds of thousands of years that Ransom just got into. So going back even further, 240,000 years or so. So if you're looking at the chart on the far right is where we are now, and on the far left is like 240,000 years prior. And you'll start to see here where the precession of what we consider the obliquity, and there's a fair few people who study this. Landscheid is one of the leaders on this, and This is what you're looking at is the wetting and greening of the Sahel. Now you see where we are, where there was that spike some 10,000 years prior. That's after we exited out of the ice age and we got the younger dry ice event. But look how many other times there were where you're talking about those footprints on some sort of dune that was in a wetter condition. How many thousand years, 100,000 years ago? That fits right on there in that center on that double peak spike. So what you just told me fits right there on the greening of the Sahel and what it on these. It's a cycle. So when they say, oh, it's getting so dry, it's getting so this, it's getting so that, I encourage you to look at data records that are far older in time, 100,000 years, 200,000 years, versus 75 years or 50 years or whatever from the satellite record. And there's millions of these papers out here, millions of them, all peer reviewed. But nobody wants to ever look at this data because if you don't talk about the ice melted since 1979 or whatever, then that nobody wants to look at this. Because this right here disproves global warming in like a single chart. It's not us. It's not you. It is natural variability and the sun in its phases of high activity or low activity. That's all it is. So I thought I'd throw that out there, Ransom. That's how easy it is to pop up information. And if I could do it in like literally seconds when you gave me that article to look at, and then boom. And then there you are, 115,000 years, and it overlaps right there on that same chart with when that area was really wet.
Right. It means that most of what they tell us about everything is either full of holes, missing most of its information, or flat out, changed for some kind of agenda, including everything. And, it's funny because human history goes right along with the climatology that they're trying to, convince new generations that our planet's burning up and that, the whole thing's a joke. But how many brain dead zombies are out there that actually believe that? And, they sit at home worried that the planet's going to burn up. There's people, I see these conversations like on Reddit and stuff. Sometimes they're worried about the moon, leaving the earth and what that means. And that's not going to happen until, I don't know, the sun turns into a red giant. So we're not going to have to worry about the moon drifting off or none of these other thousands of things that they cram. The artificial intelligence literally crams into the headlines for people to catch what do they call it? I forget what you call it. The thumbnail bait, you click on it, the clickbait. The clickbait is out of control, and now
I was going to say fear porn, but whatever.
Yeah, same difference. And they keep doing that. But I do know that we're going to end up we're going to war. I mean, they keep acting like it's not happening. See, we have these ceasefires that really don't mean anything because they just wait for the news cycle to go back around and then they start doing exactly what they were doing. I'm sure you saw Israel bombing Syria and they want to bomb some more areas, but not just bomb it. They want to take land. They said, no, we're not taking land, but we're going to take this southern part of Syria, if you guys don't mind. We need to get that under control. But they're not the only ones. Obviously, Russia's doing the same thing. They said, and I was wrong on that. I thought they would stop at the Russian-speaking areas, but no, they're going to go ahead and they're going to take another couple sections. So just like I said a couple years ago, we're just redesigning the whole map till it won't be recognizable in just a few years.
And let me pop that screen back up and see if you were looking at this is going to change. This is the 6,000 year prior hydrological cycle difference across the Sahel in North Africa. So tell me and follow that blue. That means incredibly difference in the millimeters of rainfall per day falling in the same area. Like for us, that turns in inches per year, right? So this place was desert, turns back into a rainforest or Sahel, whatever types of forest it would be. But follow that all the way over past the Red Sea. And that whole area there is going to become much, much, much wetter. Right. So who's going to want that as an agricultural zone is my question. And that's it. Thanks for letting me pop that on. Done.
Well, absolutely. Everybody's going to want that little
Everybody's going to want it because food is going to be the most important commodity on the planet with all these shifts happening.
Now you need to take that exact map and overlap a map of Chinese, Russian, and U.S. investments and European, and just overlap it, point out all the sites, and you'll see this pattern just emerging. They are trying to transplant themselves there For what reason? I mean, you can only speculate. Why would they want to abandon the northern hemispheres, fill them full as much people as they can, turn it into a war-torn area, and then do all their social experiments that they're going to need the data for in their new transhuman world. So you think things are on accident, but I see it different. Whenever you see a city that gets crammed full of a bunch of different factions on purpose, what I'm seeing is a petri dish. They want to see which different people will get along and who won't, and how they can control the scenario, the propaganda, and see if it's like 2020 to 2021. They pushed that. I'm going to say farcical. I can't even say it. The farce that happened. I'm not going to name it, but we all know what I'm talking about. Everybody was wearing, clothing that didn't really work to stop something that they didn't know they
That
were going to
wasn't
get.
there.
They were telling people, don't look at each other, don't make eye contact.
Oh, can't even. The
Hold your breath
eyes are gonna
between
train.
bites. Don't stand next to people.
Oh, couldn't do that.
All of these nonsensical things, they literally pushed human beings all over the globe to see how far they could make them go and do nutty things. And the whole world participated. It was so bizarre. I've never seen that. I've never read about anything like that. As far as I know, it's never happened where the entire world, every single country in the world, participated in some kind of event where they all did the same thing. It was mind-blowing to me. That means that we could tell them aliens are invading. We could tell them, the Earth's literally going to burn up in a few months. We have to, start doing this and that so it doesn't happen. It could all be a farce, but they can push people to do all kinds of crazy things. And then when it's over, just say, oh, no, we didn't say that. We didn't tell you to do that. They're doing that with the pharmaceutical thing. They're telling people, nah, we didn't tell you had to do that.
Yeah, you weren't forced to do that. That was your own choice. You didn't even do that.
Yeah, we didn't threaten to fire you or ruin you on social media or
No, not at all.
throw you in camps in certain countries, right? Because you didn't want to participate.
Now, Ransom, one thing, though, before we hit on the break here in just a minute, I do think one of the data points they would be looking for also was again, it fits right in. When did that get so maniacal and so outlandishly cartoonish that people just said enough's enough? And started to push back. The same thing here. You're looking around Germany. They're starting to fight back there. And in Spain, too, they're over it. So at what point, are they taking this data on a sociological edge of it to say, all right, well, you can run up to a certain wall and then people you've already, that's the maximum that can be pushed. So if you get the different demographics, the Germans can only be pushed this far. Now they're really starting to fight back. They're really like organizing communities and stuff to like do community patrols and things. And then in Spain, there's like straight up rugby football league, just hitting back on the streets, like get out. So, what point of data do they say? And then, in the vid and all that thing, enough people just said, no, I'm not, get out of my face. There's a couple double words that a lot of people would use and just say, nope, I'm not playing in the game anymore. Done. Just get out of my way.
Right.
That's a data point too. That's a data point.
Absolutely. It's like if we were on the Titanic and the entire staff and everyone just kept doing their job saying, hey, we're not sinking. You don't see water there. Don't be crazy. And everybody's saying, well, it's starting to fill up in my room. No, we're not sinking. Don't worry about it. It's just like that, but it's on a worldwide thing. And I think that is an absolute data point. Like, how long did it take before the super mask wearers and everybody decide, you know what, they're full of it. That's nobody else is doing it. They're fine. In New Mexico, we were completely locked down. They told us not to travel. I ignored every bit of that. I started going to the BLM sites. We traveled all over the Southwest. Some of the only people on the road. We'd see little, patches of people wearing the face diaper. And it was like, wow, and it got real political. But that's what I'm saying. They can try. They now know that they can make people put up with something. The question is have they figured out how much they could push people until it's too late with any scenario? Like, say, let's say Spain's just now decided that maybe they have too many people that came in. Now that there's a third of the population that are non-native. So now they've decided that, oh, well, maybe this is a problem. And even the left and the right are both now agreeing, wait a minute now. But what's bizarre is they have a little campaign where they're attacking tourists that are paying money to the businesses to stay there and buy their food and buy their drinks and stuff. they're harassing those people and then spray painting on the walls. Tourists go home, refugees welcome. But I don't think that's a real thing. It's not there's some
Can I
group
drink what
that's
they're
doing that.
drinking?
I know. And I want to talk about it when we get back from the break, though. But there is something festering and happening over here close to home while everyone pays attention to the Middle East and to Eurasia over there and their problems. Something's festering here, and we'll get to that. So I guess commercial break then.
Let it roll. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
How do you feed your families when the shelves are empty, the stores are shut, and there's no food available? What is the fastest, easiest, and most productive foods to grow? What is the quickest way to get somebody who has no skills at all up and running and producing very quickly? If you understand that we're at a point in history where it is no longer optional to be growing your own food, if you're like really freaked out and concerned because you've never grown food before and you don't have any skills, you don't know how to do that, but you know how important it is, then I want to let you know, however you stumbled here, you're in the right place. My name is Marjorie Wildcraft. I'm the founder of the Grow Network, and I have been the female leader in the survival and preparedness space for the last 20 years.
How to grow lots of food, even if you have no experience, are older and out of shape. This is for people who want the fastest and easiest ways to produce healthy and delicious meat, eggs, and vegetables. Because you know that growing your own food is like printing your own money. During this webinar, you will get status of global food shortages, how long the crisis will last, how much space you need to grow food, easiest, highest calorie foods you can produce, a complete plan for producing all the food you need, how to get started today, regardless of season. Marjorie will show you the fastest, easiest, and simplest ways to produce calories and nutrition, especially in a crisis and/or grid-down situation. The assumption is that you have no experience and you need to start producing food immediately. The most popular part of the webinar is the Q&A session at the end. So please come prepared with your questions.
Don't forget to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
And welcome back for the second hour here. Let's check out Civilization Cycle, and thank you for those that were getting us and buying us a coffee. It's important because we have some software costs that we do accrue every month here, and we try to have a few things that help us get the videos. And beyond the software, you know, we're trying to run with AI also and use all these things here. So Catherine Barlow, thank you so much. Keep up the good work. And someone bought us 3 double espressos, and you know, thank you for the support as well. Someone bought us a double espresso last week, and like, you know, it's these little things that help us. keep our costs down when we're running here until we can get more profitable. Because the things we talk about, YouTube, which would be a major platform where you could actually earn, there's like, your content is not welcome here. It's great because we do have valuable ideas, but just we're not allowed to talk about it. I don't understand that, So please sign up for the newsletter. We'll get you the show notes out. And if you do appreciate this type of content that's a little different, we're trying to weave ideas together. Please give us some support over there, and we always need things to move forward here as I'm trying to talk. And there we go. I'm going to start us off here. The first article of the second hour. Thank you so much for joining us, Civilization Cycle. Coldest summer in California so far. Now, this is July 14th. If you look at the mean daily temperature percentile over the last 30 days, see where it says record lowest? Yeah, this is the complete opposite of what we're being told about this world right now, that it's nonstop burning up. We're in a broiling planet, charbroil, like double extra heat. Yet what they're showing you with the real over the last 30 days, a large portion of that coastal area of California is well below normal. So, how does that bode anyway? And then we got South Korea lashed by heavy rains. And here's another thing I would encourage you to look over here on the right side with me. If you're noticing that that doesn't work. It doesn't. Follow me to the right. Now, most of these absurd snowstorms that we're seeing are over in Asia as well. Like second time China has had snow so far, and it's in Gansu province, which is out west. But South Korea, and you're looking around the world, the amount of flooding that's going on is absolutely biblical in the sheer terms of the number of floods going on and the depth of water of these floods. Record flood after record flood, once in a 1,000-year flood is now the normal type of flood that we're getting. Pakistan, it's like the third or fourth time I've seen Pakistan just getting unbelievably flooded. But again, that was a cradle of civilization that dried out. It's becoming wet again. There's really nothing there to trap the water. If that was a forest and they were to get the same amount of rainfall, I think that would absorb quite a bit of that. But they're in desert, and there's nowhere for that water to go. It's just straight away. It's hard packed there, and it eventually will start growing, get green, and then that water will be less and less and less, and these floods will be less. But until that point comes where the vegetation starts to dampen the flood effects. And then Lampang, that's down in Thailand, another amount of heavy flooding there. And it's just, there's so many flood destinations going on. There's something that has definitely changed. And as this last video, I was trying to talk about the QBO, which is a quasi-biennial oscillation. And it talks about where the winds are flowing. And right now, the easterly winds are overtaking the westerly winds, are absolutely pegged off the chart. The amount of easterly winds, they literally can't measure it anymore because it's gone far beyond even the most record measurements that they've ever had before. So they're trying to create new elements inside the chart. Like the peg on the chart was 24 meters per second. They were clocking in over that. So what that means is generally at this time of the year, the westerlies are blowing. So in this time, the wind is so strong from the other direction that I wouldn't say it's reversing, but it's blowing the counter direction to the point that it's off the chart in the strength. So 24 meters per second is somewhere around 65 miles per hour. So that's getting toward a hurricane strength wind that's blowing the opposite direction of where it should at this time of the year. So that's why they don't really have measurements this strong, because it just doesn't manifest like that. In Antarctica, it had almost got near the record coldest temperature ever recorded on our planet, but it was a few degrees off of that. That in turn knocked a huge amount of cold out of the Antarctic basin that came up in Chile and Peru and Argentina. And the border crossing with Chile and Argentina had to close because it was too cold. So there was no travel. It was just too cold for anybody, life-threatening cold, so they closed the border. Like, this is what's happening in the southern hemisphere. And at the same time, with the reversing winds, and I'm not going to say the entire atmosphere is reversing, I'm just saying the normal flow that we get from easterlies and westerlies, and how our intertropical convergence zone moves up and down off the equator and creates the monsoon and El Ninos and La Ninas, that wind pattern is significantly very different, to the point of being never recorded being this strong. Now, being this strong is only from the satellite record, and maybe further back when they could, some sailors had noticed something was different. So we'll say 200 years of time. I'll be generous even with that point. But we've never measured in a multi-thousand year fashion. So we really don't know. Is this just part of a cycle that comes back again? Is this really the reason of the onset of things, for the destruction of crop growing regions on the planet when we couldn't grow as easily as we could have before? So the SOT.net, this is a great one here. If you haven't been to SOT, you got to check it out. Their Earth changes section is top notch. So they have contributors from all over the world that try to consolidate onto the site here. So Pakistan warns of urban flooding. Again, there's just nowhere for that water to go. And you can watch some of the video with the floods. Pop one of these up, but that's the amount of water coming out of these little tiny streams, villages all along these little streams, and then suddenly they turn into giant raging rivers. But rewind the clock, and I am sure that the rivers were much wider than they are now, probably where they're building. And here's some pictures of the South Korean floods. So again, what we're seeing is these rivers, just as it was in Texas, they're like going out miles from their normal locations. And this seems to be happening across the planet. It's not just in the US. It's not just in Asia. It's in the Middle East. It's in the Southern Hemisphere. It is everywhere. What is that, a Bigfoot festival right there? Right on. 7.3 earthquake off of Alaska. Now, Ransom, the reason I wanted to show you this, because I wanted to get your opinion. Have you heard of this Utah vortex wildfire that they keep showing here? Is this making the news where you're at? Because that is a EF2 fire tornado is the best way. Like, if that was a spinning tornado in Kansas, that would be at least an EF2 or 3. But, the width and the circumference of where it's tapping on the ground there, that's a fire-nado. So I don't know. What do you think, Ransom? Do you have anything to comment on that? Because I'm seen this picture rolling through a few times on my feeds.
Well, it's obviously very possible. I mean, we have giant dust devils here. So if you can imagine, if that came up and that draft hit right where there's a bunch of hot air exploding up into the atmosphere, it's going to cause this effect. I mean, it's literally the same effect that causes tornadoes. So for all intents and purposes, that is what it is. It's just the scale of it. I mean, that's horrific. That's how you get a town barbecued right there, like where no one gets to leave because it just happens out of nowhere. And dust devils are fast. They move along the ground really fast, just like a tornado does. It's on a smaller scale, but this is like in between those things. This is being supercharged by the heat of the fire, and it's causing this tornado effect. Yeah, that's terrifying right there. I actually didn't see that, but that's pretty scary.
Yeah, and then what do we got here? Let me pop on to the Watchers News is another one. So those of you who are always asking, like, David, how do you find your news? I haven't refreshed this page in a day or so. Oh, it did refresh itself. So then we have historic rainfall again in Tokyo, or around Tokyo. Okay, that's a major city, and it's starting to see stationary storm drops, record rainfall in Zaragoza, Spain. Heaviest rains in 120 years. That's how South Africa images. Pakistan. So what is it? The Quad Cities in Iowa under emergency rainfall. And again, you're just starting to see this over and over again of just floods and floods and floods. And there's the Southern Data Ocean again. Please, everybody. The reason I was doing that QBO story is I kept getting so many people hitting me up going, the oceans have reversed. No, they haven't. The salinity has changed enough where the downwelling or the upwelling of the currents that take that surface water down, and it causes that, massive. It'd take 1,000 years to circulate all around the planet, right? So that is what is different. The salinity. It's not the current itself. It could be in a vertical fashion, and we're talking just almost non-measurable. but the surface salinity is different. So they ran with this whole thing like the entire surface of the entire ocean has reversed itself. It hasn't. So that was the same thing. Like the easterly westerlies, they come every year. You know, this is how we get seasons. It hasn't reversed the entire atmosphere. It's just an anomaly on one region of the equatorial band that is blowing east when it should be blowing west. But the rest of the weather, I don't know. Is it tied to that? Because we're getting a huge amount of floods that should not be happening. Like look at these massive landslides in Ecuador. That's from massive rain. Monsoon floods, you know, everywhere you're looking. China, heat wave, record demand. I mean, they're getting stuck with heat domes over it. And this is a great site. Anybody would like to look at the watchers. And, you know, shout out to everybody who does all this compilation of this sort of thing. And here's another one. A month's worth of rain in 2 hours in Moscow. And then we saw these crazy floods where all these people were down in New York City, stuck in the water in New York City. Like, what is going on with the floods? That's another thing. Something has to be tied together with the QBO and the amount of all these other floods. So if the equatorial winds are sort of reversing at themselves, then is this responsible and making other things reverse back on itself in different latitudes and cloud cells going up north and south from the equator? Is this why we're getting these floods? Or is it something to do with the decreasing magnetic field and more galactic cosmic rays really starting to pummel us, along with those two naked eye supernovas? Because if anything knows about Chinese history or in the Middle East, the Sufis and these guys and gals, it was men at that time, the keepers of knowledge, they would notice when a supernova would be visible to the populace that the weather just completely went ape, for a better term. That's with one. We've had two in the last year. So remember the speed of light. When the light, that was the thing about 2-3 weeks ago, you couldn't see this latest one because it wasn't there. The light hadn't reached us yet. So if you're talking about visible light speeding along with cosmic rays, right? Once you see it, the boom, that wave, that light wave is literally past you. So now we're getting all these record floods. We had two naked visible eye novas in the skies. And now we have our winds reversing at least partially on the equator. And then we have all record floods on all continents. Just there's not a flood anymore. It is literally once in 1,000-year flood every time now. So that this all has to be tied together. And then we're changing the economy as of this week. And AI is coming in to take over a thing where humans won't be. So, you know, you start to layer this on top and you know, it's just, I don't know, Ransom, I'm trying to make sense of it. You know, I'm glad we do the show every week because I'm just trying to figure it out along with everybody here in the discussion. So if you have any comments, please throw them by and we will take a look at them, see what we got for your comments tonight.
Yeah, you know what? The thing that bothers me is, you know, you were pointing out that that fire NATO, and then the people freaking out about the ocean, thinking it's going in reverse, and it's kind of sad because I know that they don't teach the same things, I guess, or I got lucky when I was young about certain scientific principles. You know, like nothing, everything is always normal to me until there's something not normal. So if I look at something that has to do with buoyancy and the circulation of the earth spinning, and I look at it, that makes sense to me. Just like underwater, there's little tornadoes, so to speak, under the water that turn stuff, but it's all based on the turning of the earth. So if the earth actually, you know, changed its speed or something, then you would see these miraculous things happen. But people freak out about stuff just because they don't understand it. Like, I don't know how often, it's like a real big thing on Twitter right now to show the Doppler radar system active, and then people freaking out say, look, they're using energy to make the weather, man. Now, they might be trying to do stuff like that, but I think it's much more important for them to have it where you believe that they can. And, you know, we talked about some of the amounts of energy that's actually involved in some of this stuff that we're talking on the planet, like the heat exchange from the ocean to the atmosphere, trying to move a hurricane. You're talking about something that's like, thousands of nuclear bombs worth of energy. You're not moving it. That's why they laughed at kind of Trump, when he said to drop a bomb in it. It was funny because, all he would have did is made a dirty bomb, basically, where you had, radioactive rain falling on people. It wouldn't have did anything to the hurricane itself. It might have maybe energized it a little more because it added heat to it, but not to the, scale of the hurricane itself. It's like covering a big portion of our planet there. What's scary to me is, people not understanding all this. And even when you do have a basic understanding of it, like I was just showing that thing in Japan, imagine how freaked out they get when they have a historical history of massive tsunamis, volcanoes, and earthquakes that are devastating. And then, the thing that went around is this comic book was predicting that they would have a big earthquake and or volcano happening, in this year. And then all of a sudden they have earthquake swarms. So, they're all nervous over there. Where fiction and nonfiction kind of meet together. But I've been paying attention. I don't know how normal this is, and I had a question for you. I brought up the Lechamp excursion thing.
Yeah, please feel free to jump your other Scott. I was just trying to throw something up there visually. These longer term. This goes back 800,000 years. I mean,
that's
and you got to start looking at some of the longer term data. Yeah.
That's the wrong one. I'll get to that. But
no. I was done with it. I was just trying to put something up while we were talking for visual, for people looking for like vegetative indexes over hundreds of thousands of years and things.
Well, I had this weird question because, we know that, or as far as I've learned, cosmic rays have a big impact on whether or not an earthquake or a volcano has activity. And also, intertwined with the energy coming from the sun. Like there's some kind of correlation there. So my question would be, like, would there be like an uptick in volcanic activity, earthquakes and things like that while your magnetic field was flipping or moving around or excursion? And, is that something that also led to a lot of stuff dying off at that time? Was not just the, danger from exposure from the sun, but its effects, the domino effect that it has with our crust and our volcanic system, earthquakes and, stuff like that. But, these floods that you're talking about, 1,000-year floods, I realized this the other day, that I'm sitting out here in this vast desert with lots of, acreage of land. It's a lot. It's unimaginable. New Mexico's a big state and it's mostly empty. So these flash floods come through here and it dumps unimaginable amounts of water on a single area all of a sudden when the monsoon just dumps on it. The problem is that most people don't really notice that because it's like I don't know what the odds are that it's going to hit right downtown on your little city in all that acreage. So it's always happening. There's these massive floods out in the middle of nowhere that no one even knows about. The only time they pay attention to it is when it happens to hit a populated area. But to move on from that, that was kind of a question to you. What do you think the magnetic field in combination with the sun and earthquakes and volcanoes, how much does that actually play a role? And do you think we're actually going to see some kind of real uptick or even downtick right before, there's an event related to our magnetic field, like a temporary collapse or a flip or any of that would kind of amount to the same thing, where solar radiation would just bombard the earth kind of unfiltered and right on us. And those that were exposed, i.e. people that live outside, if they're in that area, like say you live in a mud hut somewhere, Southeast Asia, Africa, the Amazon, no matter where it is, that's the place it hits. Do you think that they're going to get more or less, radiation than other people that live in skyscrapers or, you can even go there with the bunkers, but imagine what that's going to do. And I know that you've done a lot of studying on cosmic rays and crop growth and whether or not it will or won't under certain circumstances. So like, imagine if you have all these farms and they're just getting baked, fried by the sun because there's no magnetic field. But not only that, imagine the amounts of mutation that will happen in the crops themselves and the people, animals, and etc.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what it would be. It's a galactic cosmic rays that have an interaction with the Paleozoic composition of the crust, basically crystals in the crust. And that would be you're familiar with this because you hang out with Diamond, or Diamond as well, and some geologic references here. So if you're looking at quartz crystals or quartzite or different types of quartz-based rocks, the way it was explained to me was the galactic cosmic rays come in and then they interact with those. And the interaction causes a pressure differential, and it's in different layers of the crust. And that differential is also an energy release. So the energy release, as we understand it, is a pressure difference. And that pressure difference causes the activation and punch throughs and the activation of mud volcanoes, earth cracks and rifting, and volcanic activity itself. And in a very, very minute, smallest way, at the very surface on our planet, like we're literally driving down a road, is where bridges would be disconnecting and decoupling from the banks, like bridges falling down all over the place. We started to see this a lot now. Like there has been a lot of bridges collapsing, and I would encourage anybody to go out and just do a data search on, give me the top 30 or 40 bridge collapses over the last 2 years. Major roadways are coming down. I'm not talking about the boat that hit it. I'm talking about it's just there and then poosh, it just falls in on itself. But that pressurization and the interaction with the galactic cosmic rays, especially in lava, there's a lot of, in situ or kind of melted, for a better term, quartzite crystals in there. Because, when volcanoes erupt, there's all types of different gemstones, the peridot and different, that's very common one where you get the green coming out, get a lot of reds and pinks and that sort of thing, depending on which crystal structure it is. But again, when you're coming back to it, there's always a quartzite involved in that. So the eruptions would absolutely be incredibly noticeable as the galactic cosmic rays were increasing. And again, that might be why the Chinese had understood, and the Arab mystic star watching clans of the time, that when we saw a naked eye micronova, like a star just appears up there in the sky, that it caused a havoc on the planet with weather systems. And there's not so many volcanoes in China as much on the eruptive phase as there would be along the Ring of Fire, but they would notice it. And it's very much a telltale thing, like in just in Chinese lore itself and mythology, in Japan and Korea as well, when you look back further, the appearance of comets, like very large comets, not the ones you have to look up with a telescope and see like a little fuzzy tail that's like a half a degree of arc or an eighth of a degree arc. No, we're talking about the big ones that you can see come streaking across the sky. Like Hale-Bopp was a good one back in the 90s. That would have counted. When those types of comets come in, long duration, visible to the eye, really close to Earth, people freak out because it always brought disease, plagues for a better term. It brought drought and pestilence and famine. Because somehow our system atmospherically changed when the interaction of the ion tail, whatever, swept by. There's been a lot that have come way, way closer than Hale-Bopp. Like literally a tail of the comet grazed our planet. So when you get something like this, that is an atmosphere disruptor. But at the same time, those galactic cosmic rays hitting in and causing these magmatic events would also be like, how many eruptive volcanoes there are. If you could do me a favor, Ransom, and go to Volcano Discovery, that's a great site. They have just really good data on that one about how many eruptive volcanoes are happening today, right now, in unison at the same time. So you would see a couple things. So if it's not bridge cracks, earth cracks, and bridges pulling away, you're going to go further down in the crust. Then we start to get to the mud volcano level. So if we're starting at the Earth's surface, like cracked roads, earth cracks, earth rifts, we're seeing a lot of that. Bridges decoupling, a lot of that's happening. And then step it down several hundred feet down under the ground. You're going to start to get into the mud volcano eruptions. Mud volcano. And then further we get down, then we get into the lava and the magma chambers. So you'll start to see more pressurized eruptions. So anybody out there, ask yourself, have you seen more like crazy, wow, look at this fire hose lava like coming out of Kilauea, or the fire hose gigantic plumes coming off of Etna? and the ones that are just like rifting open like a bunch of sewing needles around in what's that, Iceland. Like there's a huge amount of pressure difference under our Earth right now. The volcanoes themselves, are they as eruptive with like, like year without a summer ash ejection? Not yet. Are they more eruptive in terms of pressures where it can be pressurized out and squeezed out, for a better term? Yeah, those are becoming much more ferocious, and you're getting 300, 400, 500 foot lava fountains. Like you normally don't see that unless you're in a really highly pressurized zone. But that would be visible first, where the extra pressure obviously is going to come out where it's easiest to come out first. Then you're going to come into the blockage areas. And we're not talking about Yellowstone. The caldera is too big. There'd be too many poke through points first before the whole thing would go off. But you're going to get into some of these plugs where that pressure is going to build up, and then suddenly, boom, then you're going to get one of those like eruptive events, that Tambora, a year without a summer, or something like this. It's going to be an ash eruption. Now, I really believe that the Hunga Tonga water vapor eruption had a lot to do with some of the things we're seeing. Because, they were talking about salinity on those Southern Oceans, salinity changes there. If you put 14% more moisture in the atmosphere from Hunga Tonga, it's going to rain out. And since our Earth is predominantly water around it, that rainfall would also go onto the surface of the ocean. So if there's 14% more moisture in our atmosphere from that single eruption, that water's going to come back and land back on the surface layer of the ocean. So do you think there might be salinity changes across all the oceans across the whole planet? I think there would be. So we're on a planetary scale here of changes that haven't been seen in hundreds of years. So, and then we get the cultural change, the societal change, the economic change, all on top of this. So who knows something? And that would be, where's that at? Where's that map at?
This is where I live. This is the funny thing about this, is because, I've read about this volcano, and what do you think would just spark out in the middle of nowhere where there's no other volcanoes? A just 75-kilometer lava flow one day 5,000 years ago, just boom. And then, there were all kinds of
overpressurization event. Now, there might have been an eruptive event that would ejecta many kilometers or miles into the sky. But if it was those are called like toothpaste lava eruptions, where you get that slow oozing where it doesn't really go any higher than a couple hundred feet, and you get that volcanic fountaining, and then that lava travels somewhere. Right. So that would have been one of those things. So map that back up on cosmic ray density or some sort of cyclic activity that falls inside of Bray cycles or grand solar minimum cycles, etc. And you might find something that lands on that eruptive time.
Right. And how magical would that have been for those natives that lived there, for a long time? And nothing like that happened. Just one day the earth opens up and starts spitting out lava, and there's a river of fire out of nowhere.
That would be myth. That would be a myth.
Right. Well, that is where they put a lot of the petroglyphs, literally right next to it, where you can look over the lava field. It's also by the Sierra Blanca, which is the source of the Apache kind of religious beliefs about the great teacher and the four teachers after that. But what's weird is, like, say I'm looking at this map. I don't know. Let's say I know nothing about volcanoes. It looks to me like the majority of the volcanoes in the world are erupting. Right now, it says interruption, minor activity.
Now, most times your average on a normal time is around 23 to maybe 25 volcanoes in unison around the planet. The highest I'd seen before was somewhere around 48. So if you're in the middle 30s, you're getting toward the really high end of the range. If you're down in the low 20s, you're right inside just like the average range over the time. That's one thing. You need to count them on your own. There's no like consolidated, here's your number for the day. I wish there were, but I haven't been able to find that. So you have to go around and count each one of those. Oh, there you go. They did it. They changed it. Okay, 41. That's really a lot. Like I said, the most I'd ever seen was in the high 40s, pushing toward 50. That is incredibly high amount of volcanoes going off on the planet at one time. 41, that's really getting toward the high edge. Like I say, normally it's in the low 20s, and that's where you'll sit. So think about that's nearly double the amount of the normal volcanic activity that we have. So what would cause that? There's nothing of anything we could produce, CO2, plastics, microplastics, nothing that could even come close to that. It has to be outside our planet. And you answered the question. So I'm very sure it's the galactic cosmic rays that are responsible for a lot of the things we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to, move into this thing that I think is festering over here in the Americas that's not really getting that much attention, or at least the right kind of attention. There's a lot of, opinions about deportation one way or the other. But I'm not really kind of taking a side on it, because my personal beliefs, it doesn't really matter because they're doing what they're doing. But I wanted to point out that they are creating a destabilization zone right under your nose. And I've been just watching it. I grew up here and I've slowly seen it change from, like Vicente Fox and George Bush. Right before them, I used to go across the border, no problem, no passport, no ID, no nothing. They kind of took your word for it that you were an American, whatever. Okay. You went into Mexico, you shopped, you had a good time. There was no animosity. Senior citizens would go down there and buy their drugs, and there was a lot of shopping for clothes. There was a whole, I guess intellectual property theft kind of economy going on, but not like, straight up copying, but they would copy stuff. So like they would make you clothes that you wanted, or all of that stuff disappeared when they locked down the border, and this whole Sinaloa and all of the other cartels kind of rose to power. So that was like the first stage of destabilization. And it became par for the course for Americans to kind of accept that. Then you get 9/11. We lock down supposedly our country with Homeland Security. We make all these rules. And here's some good news. You no longer have to take off your shoes when you go through the airport. But on the other hand, the government can now stop you and mess with you based on your physical appearance. Now, this is something I totally disagree with, because we have a constitution that supposedly protects American citizens. I'm not talking about the people that are being deported. I mean, just every one of us that's an American citizen has the right to walk down the road, travel without being stopped based on our physical appearance, which is called racial profiling. We've had lots of arguments about that, and I don't believe in it.
Stop as well.
Yeah, Terry stop. I think you look suspicious on a hunch. I have no real articulable, suspicion of a crime that you may be committing, all of that stuff. But then they're pushing this. So in response, you're getting stuff like this in Mexico. So
wait, now can I just say something, Ransom? Like everybody in their own state should know if you live in a stop and ID state or not. I mean, that should be the very basicest. If you don't even know if the police are allowed to stop you and ID you for nothing, or if they have to have probable cause, or like say a reasonable articulable suspicion before they can actually stop you and require an ID. And even at that point, it's sketchy at best. Are you in a stop and ID state? Yes or no? That would be your first bit of data to understand where you lie in this whole thing here.
Right. And, the whole thing is causing weird things to happen. For one, in America, people will start easing their ideas on what the government can do also to them, because, in order to do this other thing, we got to lax the rules of the Constitution just a little bit. There should be a legal argument made, because the way that I was taught when I was a kid was that all men are created equal, stating basically that they're saying that everybody within the United States borders has certain unalienable rights given to them by their creator. It doesn't specify whether or not they're a citizen or not. There's only a couple things in there that require citizenship: running for president, voting, for political office or whatever. Okay, I get that. But it seems more like one of these manufactured, tailored situations that you can provoke a population on both sides of any border to do. So in Mexico right now, things are getting spicy. They have protests against surging mass tourism in Mexico, very similar to what I was talking about in Spain, except for the writing on the walls are "Go home gringo" and "Kill gringo." So that's a little different, but it's the same difference of what's going on in Spain, where they're saying "Go home tourism," "Go home tourists," whatever. And then you know, it gets to an extreme sometimes, like you find in South Africa, to kill the boar, kill the farmer. These kinds of things, when left unchecked, or grow in animosity from fake propaganda on either side of a thing, really get dangerous for humans that live there. And we're talking about our area that we live in right here with this big border. So there's a lot of, you know, tourists. We're sending people home, but nowhere near the amount of people that George Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, they were deporting a lot more people. So we're not even deporting that many people, but some weird stuff's going on. Here's one about a cannibal we were deporting that tried to eat himself on the ride home.
How do you
Right.
That's got to be the news story of the month.
Right. And then this one, like, you see conflicting, you know, headlines, of course, because you have different political persuasions at those news outlets. So you can't really take anything without a grain of salt. Mexico braced for Trump's mass portations that haven't happened. But then here's another article that says, do they deserve it? Mexico is collapsing as the U.S. deports illegals back home. Well, I think it was going to be collapsing anyway because it's a failed narco state, and it has been for a long time. And then you have events like, I don't know, Fast and Furious, if you know what I'm talking about, where new cartels pop up with, you know, brand new American made Kevlar and guns and helmets and, you know, like the whole 9 yards. They're totally armed up and aided in the same way that we're doing to other nations, except for we're not giving them, you know, bombs, big ones. We're giving them stuff like 203s. So, you know, that big scandal came out. They stopped doing it, supposedly. But if you remember back in the Reagan administration, we had the Iran
Ollie
Contra.
North.
So it's
Wasn't
all
that
the
Ollie
same.
North?
Right. It's the same game over and over again, despite
Sheesh.
the political party. They do the same things. Arm people, make them a problem, and then that gives you a reason to go in. So are they collapsing? Are they not collapsing? I don't know. Trump was, you know, I mean, Trump is deporting way fewer people than Obama, but I did the research. It's way fewer than the last 4 presidents, as far as, you know, percentage wise. And then, you know, like I said, you're having this growing sentiment of, you know, tribalism that they're creating for no reason, because really Mexico could be one of our best trading partners considering they're next door and they make and grow a lot of stuff, and they could do it for us. There's really no reason that we shipped off jobs to China, India, or these other places when we could have helped straighten out the failed narco state right to the south. But instead we didn't do that. We have fueled the flames. We have armed stuff, and real soon you're going to see a combat situation not unlike Ukraine and Russia right here. It'll just be for different reasons. And then, you know, like in Europe, they're really going crazy. I thought this was so funny because, you know, I know a lot of people that like pre-Christian ideas. So like they're very proud of, you know, Viking artwork, or, you know, maybe they're a Scot like me. I'm mostly Scottish. I'm a Scotsman, I guess, if anything. I've taken several DNA tests. They all say the same thing. But they're, you know, to all of a sudden tell people of a certain kind, you know what, your stuff is bad, the other people's is good. We'll throw you in jail for doing your own thing from your own country, from your own heritage, from where you come from your ancestry, but their ancestry's good. It's okay. Don't say nothing about that or go to jail. So it's all these manufactured shatter belts. It's like, so they took the think tank guys from when the Soviet Union collapsed and just wrote a book on how to do that everywhere else. Balkanize, tribalize, and then, you know, pit everyone against each other, which in the end makes it where none of the little groups individually were planning for the future because they're too busy fighting off perceived threats in their homeland, or, you know, they're not thinking about the future. So they're not starting farms, they're not starting businesses, they're having turmoil, and it's all designed. But don't worry about it.
Might I say something about that? Now, rewind it a little bit. If you have an interaction with the police, the first thing you need to do is ask them, is their body cam rolling? Because they, you know, and I have respect for some police officers, but others are just, you know, brutes out there that are abusing their badges. And you know who you are, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there are actually really quality people out there that are doing it, this passion they love. So, you know, you got to read each one of them differently. And how it is. But the number one thing, if you're having an interaction with the police, you need to make sure and ask them, is your body cam rolling? That is another number one question, not your name and your badge number, obviously, but is your body cam rolling? Like you got to make sure their body cam's rolling. And once they hear you go, is your body cam rolling? You go, oh, shoot, these guys want me to turn the camera on. Yeah, you must at least know something about law enforcement. Why do they ask me about body cam rolling? And it's very important then, if they're starting to question you about all these things, then you have to say something like, my attorney has advised me not to answer any questions without my lawyer present. And with their body cam rolling, and by you saying that, at that point, you are the culpability is on them to prove that you've done, and just say nothing. And then if they do arrest you, then you don't have to say anything because they read your Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Okay. Because I've seen a few people that got arrested for doing that, and they're like, so you're going to arrest me now, and I can stay silent for not answering a question after you arrest me for not answering your questions, right? So the first thing is, like, if you have these true interactions, please make sure their body cam's rolling. That's the very minimum. And you know what I mean, Ransom? Like, if their body cam's rolling, then there's a lot more. They're going to be really walking way back off the line because a lot of these guys go way too far. And the police these days, most respect for the ones who are quality, who actually abide by the Constitution, but the ones who are dirt bags and going off in that direction and abusing their power just because they got beat up in high school and now they have a badge and they can go over everybody, please. But make sure the body cam's on, because that is very usable in a court of law. And they'll really walk it back if they know that they have it on, and then once you ask them to turn it on, they're going to walk their crap back to the line, and they're going to get put back into a box because they know now that everybody's watching, that there's eyes on them. Just to throw that out there for anybody who's having interaction these days. It could be anybody, could be me, could be you, Ransom, could be anybody. I don't live in a stop and ID state, so for them to walk up and go, hey, I need to see your ID, I'd be like, am I being detained right now? Or this is a voluntary conversation. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you need to know your rights. Like, the basic thing is not a lot of people know their rights. That's even the most basic stuff that you need to know. So if you have these interactions, there's a whole bunch of this, and we're getting militarized everywhere. You're going to have more interactions with the police. Guaranteed. This is going that direction. At the very minimum, in your local law enforcement, you should know at least where at least some of them, who's running for sheriff in your place. You know anything about the politics, the sheriff that's running in your county? I mean, those are like the super simplest things people need to know. But we are absolutely going to have more interactions with the police moving forward. Guaranteed it's coming that way.
Unfortunately, I have a little bit of a different opinion because I watched probably millions of those videos where people confront the cops. Is your body camera rolling? Am I being detained? And my lawyer said this. That will get you in a heap of mess. So you better be prepared to do something with it if you're going to do that. I actually advise that you play dumb. You keep all that in mind. You don't say much, very vague, just answer questions, cooperate, and they get bored with you. But as soon as you start saying anything that they perceive as a sovereign citizen movement, which would be, because really they're the sovereign citizens. But I've watched I'm telling you, millions of these videos of police interactions. And what always happens is, despite the body cam, the police don't get punished. No matter what they do, they could beat you senseless, kill you on video, and still they're not going to get criminally or financially held responsible, and except for really rare cases. Almost always their insurance pays it. If they get, their qualified immunity is messed up, you could sue them personally, but you're probably not none of that works out. So unless you have quite a bit of money and you're, putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, you better just cooperate and kind of play dumb and be docile, because that's what they want. And see, you get this whole conundrum of a whole nation that wants law and order because they gave them the opposite of it. They gave them riots. They gave them burning down buildings. They gave them, images of police brutality on the wrong person. So if you ever notice when they throw those marches, the guy ends up being a pedo, or he had already, he drew his gun on you don't get the whole story. And they pick the worst examples of people to try to put that so that normal people will look at it and go, well, wait a minute. He was committing crimes. He was doing something wrong. And then they're like, well, we need more law and order. And then you get people like the Trump administration that moves quickly to reduce liability of law enforcement. So they already have almost no liability whatsoever and are never held accountable, and then give them more protections, which erodes your constitutional rights. Now, in theory, I agree with you 100%, because when I was young and I didn't have nothing to lose, I was a little mouthy. I said all of that stuff, and well, let's put it this way. You usually end up in jail and you have to pay to get out. If you had a car, it got towed, you have to have the money to get that out. Then you could sue them later. You might possibly maybe get some of that money back, but you still lost your time. You still lost your reputation with some people that don't think, what you're saying is legit, because the saying is back the blue until it happens to you. Right. So
I'm just talking about walking down the street and somebody just tries to pull
I
you out.
know.
Like driving a car is a completely different thing.
I know. My suggestion is just be vague. Where are you going? Well, even when you say that's none of your business or something to that effect, they take offense to that and start power tripping. They even used to have this thing that, most people don't end up dying because they pulled a gun or whatever. The very first thing that happens before that is contempt of cop. So as soon as you say, why do I have to get out? Why are you pulling me over? Why are you detaining me? I agree. In theory, you should do all of that. However, you better be able to back it up with your financially, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to have to hire a lawyer. You're going to have to pay fines in the meantime. You're going to have to go to court. You're going to get thrown in jail. You're going to lose, lost wages through your job. You might get fired because you didn't show up. All kinds of bad things can happen to you just because you tried to exercise perfectly normal constitutional rights. Now, like I said,
Well, that's the
in theory,
difference between getting pulled over, and I understand that you're getting pulled over and you start arguing. Of course, your car is going to get towed. I'm just saying, if you're walking down the street and you get hassled suddenly just because you're walking down the street and they're like, "Are you from the country? Are you from here?" Wait a minute,
yeah.
hold on.
Well, obviously that's stupid. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying
That's way
is
different. That's two different
if-
cases here. I'm just walking down the street, and then some they're trying to stop an ID and asking all these questions. Hey, wait, I'm just kind of walking on the street. I'm just going on my own way here.
Papers, please. Papers, please.
No papers. No
of
papers.
course, that's asinine, but we've been dealing with it for decades in the United States. When you agree to drive, you agreed to show them people your driver's license. So even if you're walking down the street, I'm just saying it would be easier, no matter what color you are, to give them your ID where they see that you're a resident and you live somewhere, and say, yeah, no, be vague. Let them go ahead and investigate. Don't help them. Don't talk. You have the Fifth Amendment. You have the Fourth Amendment. That's your privacy and your right not to incriminate yourself. So anything you say, they try to twist and incriminate. That's their job. So, when you know that, just shut up, let them do their thing, go on about your way. Trying to kind of sovereign citizen them will get you entangled with them, and you usually don't win in the end. I'm just saying, you can start a marathon right now on one of those channels and just watch and then find out what happened to each case. And you'll find out the people, they sued, they got some money from the insurance. The cop might have got fired, but then he just moved to another city and got a job.
Another district,
still
man.
doing
they do
it
that all the time, don't they?
Yeah.
It's like the priests too. They get nailed in one place and then they just get shifted off somewhere else, right?
That exactly happens. Yes.
Damn. Man. I'm just talking about, we're coming into a weird world here, and, people are just going to need to be a little more versed in the law.
Oh, I totally agree with that. And I'm not trying to downplay what you said. I'm just saying there is.
Yeah, and I'm talking in a different situation.
Reality.
I'm not talking about driving, because, you either have a commercial vehicle or you think, okay, you're in a car and they pull you over. That's a completely different thing than me. I'm just walking on the street and I'm trying to go to a friend's house, or I'm just walking over there to go to the store or something. And then
but you look suspicious. On you and like,
hey, you a citizen? Hey, what are you doing? Where are you going? Hey, whoa, hold on a second. This is way out of bounds, man.
Yeah, I agree. But it happens. And
it does happen.
On another note, you want to live longer? Mushrooms might be the answer. I think
mushrooms interacting with the cops. Great, Ransom. Thanks for putting those two together.
I'm not. I really think, and this is genuine, that the civilizations of the past were getting ideas and expanding their mind, so to speak. And this is where our little industrial revolutions of the past, the ones that you don't know about, the ones that happened before we started keeping track, they were doing this. We know they were doing this because they left us cliff notes, literally, on the wall with mushrooms. Like all in the Southwest, every site I've ever been, if there's a fully still intact cliff dwelling, one, if not more of the windows is a mushroom. They put the mushroom right in the design. There's this town, Blanding, Utah. The city copied that shape, the T shape. They call it the T shape, but it's a mushroom. It's obviously a mushroom. They made implements, little pottery and different stuff to boil and make little things with mushrooms. The entire Mayan and Aztec mythology probably has a little bit to do with the fact that they were drinking ayahuasca, alcohol derived from spit and other plants, and they were popping mushrooms. But then you fast forward, it kind of got demonized because of different, I'm going to say, religions and government factions in more recent times. But scientists are now discovering that, it is very possible that something like superposition could be accessed through molecules that are entering into the brain. And, they found out too that some of these things like LSD actually grow inside of the plant. So for a long time, they were getting these morning glories, and they were getting the little fungus that grows off the outside of it to manufacture LSD. But then they recently discovered there's more of it inside of the plant, and it lasts longer. And now they know how to give you this same compound without the psychoactive portions of it. So you can get the health benefits without, melting in your living room. But there may be something said about doing that, because a lot of people argue you drop your ego. And if you drop your ego, you drop a lot of the worries that you've built up in your life. And it's kind of like a reset in the way that, you feel different afterwards. And they're using it for PTSD, all kinds of psychological things. And it might be that all along, everything you need comes out of the ground. And, to end on that, I was kind of,
and I would say
talked a
also
lot.
that's the purple morning glory you're looking for that you just described, because morning glory comes in a different variety of colors. So the one specific that Ransom was mentioning is the purple one.
Right. Well, I was going to bring up, but we were talking about other stuff and kind of missed the hour, but stuff that you could plant right now. So you could be harvesting this fall and winter, all kinds of stuff. So like squash and, all them greens and stuff that can take a temperature.
And Ransom, the only reason I'd know that it's the purple one is because I have this book here, Plants of the Gods.
Nice. Right.
Yeah, this is a great one. If you're going to dive into this world and like jump around in it for a minute, this is one of the originals that you need to have in your collection, Plants of the Gods. It goes through everyone that's ever been revered, used in all of human history, how it was used, where it was used, what part of the plant was used, and what part of the world that they used it in with the maps and everything. So this is you must dive into this to, and the Hittites too, and that whole mushroom thing over in where Petra was in Jordan up to modern day.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not promoting it because I like it or have done it or any of that. I'm just reading article after article that's talking about the unlocking of thoughts and reducing depression and all kinds of stuff. There's a big fad out here out west of microdosing the mushrooms, so small amounts that they don't feel it. There's no reaction with them, but they build up those molecules in there, and it seemingly is giving people better health, and according to that article, may even aid in making you live longer, along with having a dog and cat and some exercise and a lot of greenery. It's weird that the scientists are now discovering that the most, best place for humans to be is inside within nature. Mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling, yeah.
Who would have thought plants and animals and stuff would be good?
Here's some of your plants. They got the whole mushroom category here. Now they tell you very clearly, don't eat the red and white one. It has to be filtered first, but you get into the mescaline and the peyote cactus and the different classes of cactus, and they have a whole section in the cactus. And, believe it or not, there's some store-bought cactus that you can go in, like the San Pedro cactus and these different things. And you can get them right off the shelf. And if you prepare them correctly, then you can, have your own journey right out of the store. Mammillaria cactus, San Pedro. There's a couple.
I saw advertisements for Mike Tyson mushroom gummies, man. Can you imagine that? A lot of people are jumping on it because they know in the near future, they're not only going to be using all of these things that they've forbidden people to use, but they're making designer versions of it with synthetic DNA. Wait till the AI is in charge of your trip.
Oh, no. No, thank you. I'll sit back and search out for some cows in a field somewhere. That'd be all good.
Cow tip.
Anyway, everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. Civilizationcycle.com. Jump in, check out the show notes, put your email there, and make sure you get those in a one-pager. I sent that out just before the show tonight. And again, it's just so you can remember what we talked about, because we run through a lot of different points. And it's also, if you want to start conversation with others, that also those bullet points are there to maybe throw it out and see what other people are thinking, your friends, your family, coworkers, people around your community, because the world's changing so much so fast that everybody just feels something's different. So we do need to have these conversations on why, what, where, and then how are we going to behave and react, and then what's the plan moving forward, because we're going to have a plan moving forward from now. So I appreciate you listening, watching us tonight, and bye for now.